Thanks so much, Zoe. Yep, this is going to be, I think, a pretty good match. And I like that there's low expectations, but hey, this is the double L's. We're going to be serving up 2 more L's, but Paris Eternal hoping to get their first W here at this stage.
Yeah, it's 0-6 right now for Paris Eternal, a far cry from their once dominant performance with the core that moved over to the Dallas Fuel. Since then, Lemon, Paris Eternal, they've been trying to mix and match a lot of European talents to try and find that secret sauce that would be transferred into consistent success. But unfortunately, already this early in the 2022 season, they've had to rejig their entire DPS line. They've lost Naga, they've lost Glister, and they've been replaced with both Wub and Dove from North American contenders. And by no means are these guys slouches. I think that Wub's performance on the Genji was one of the few highlights we had from Paris Eternal towards the end of the kickoff clash. But as we head into a new meta, how will their hero pools stack up against what we've come to expect with a little bit more Sojourn involved?
Yep, Dove fresh out of the oven. He doesn't have a picture yet. And he gets to play alongside Wub, so you got the rookie DPS lineup. And, you know, the Paris Eternal didn't play in the kickoff clash. They haven't even played a match yet on this new patch. So we're in this restructure era for them where they haven't gotten a win yet. And I still think because of these roster changes, they're going to set themselves even further behind from other teams. But this is an experimental era. This is about innovation. So maybe with all the time off they had from the kickoff clash and, you know, all the time thus far, we could have some surprises. But you're going up against the kickoff clash champions, a team that has only lost twice to reverse sweeps. So this is going to be a really tough final boss for the Eternal to go up against.
Yeah, final boss in the first level, Lemon. That's that's not a difficulty wall. That's not a difficulty curve. It's a difficulty wall, a difficulty overhang. Here the LA Gladiators with their roster. Arns is starting today. Not the most common sighting on a control map, but I'm personally hoping that we're going to be seeing Arns leaning into the Sojourn at the moment because we know this guy's flicks are nasty. And Sojourn at the moment is proving to be a raid boss of a character. We saw Kai yesterday essentially dismantle Boss and Uprising on Eichenwald all by himself playing Sojourn. And that's the kind of performance that I'm going to be expecting from Arns if he picks up the hero.
I mean, this is just going to be clearly a great meta for this team. You're able to play the double flex support with Shu and Skewed, whether the Zen Bap or whatever they choose. And Reiner was, you know, now that they're playing a little bit more Reinhardt, Reiner was insanely dominant in Overwatch contenders when it came to Reinhardt, and it matches well with his hyper-aggressive playstyle. And if they choose to go towards Hammond, which we might see called up upon when it comes to Oasis, although they haven't played that in this patch yet, Reiner is incredibly flexible, and that is going to be demanded of him. Now, Ons has to match up on maybe Sojourn has been more popular as of late. Ons will have to go up against Wub on the Sojourn, who has been practicing that as of late.
The Sojourn, definitely something that we've come to expect, but look at these score lines at the top. 0-6, 5-2. Gladiators, of course, winning the kickoff clash handily. The 4-0 win in the grand finals. I think that Gladiators, their biggest asset at the moment, Lemon, is not only how good their players are, but how flexible they are as well. It feels like Gladiators are one of the few teams that in the kickoff clash managed to at least have a good grasp of every single iteration of the meta. But on the other side, I'm excited for Khan and Dan. These European mainstays, I know personally that Dan's ball is mad good, and Khan is a fragging demon. When it comes to the Zenyatta, we've seen that before on Circuit Royale, especially in the kickoff clash, and we can see it again here in a fresh meta.
And for those questioning like what Dove's hero pool is, it kind of overlaps with what Glister used to bring. So probably mainly Tracer and Ashe is what we're going to expect from Dove. But how is he going to feel just out the gates against a team like the Gladiators? Well, they immediately collapse thanks to that Hammond composition. It's going to play off very quickly as Gladiators were still trying to get into position. So that's a good first fight for the Eternal.
Okay, starting off with a flawless fight, that'll do just perfectly for Paris Eternal. Managing to do a huge amount of damage straight away. I think Skewed was the first one picked off there by Wub, who is going to get extricated from this dangerous scenario by Dan. And Paris Eternal, it already looks like the comms are clean, and this is a reason for hopium right now for Paris Eternal fans.
Dove grabs the Mega, but he's completely surrounded by the Gladiators and not able to escape. You trade that with Ons, though. 4 versus 4. As control still for the Eternal. Gladiators hoping to flip that over as Dawn approaches the backline. It squashes Scoot like a bug, and now Reiner is left with really not much help besides his Tracer, so this is back-to-back fights for the Eternal.
Back-to-back and more control, I mean, it feels like Dan and Werb are moving together so well that Skewed and Shu, while they are going for this high output backline, they aren't very good at peeling for each other. Shu's got to try and save this Sleep Dart for when Dan is pile driving, and that means Dove and Werb have so much more freedom for these early engages.
This is, again, first picks for Eternal, but finally an anti and a bunch of CC hits Dawn, so he's out of the picture. But Eternal are fine, maybe just controlling the point over to highway side, but Reiner's going to shove him into traffic. And now you have no supports for the Eternal, no tank, so the Gladiators will get to flip at around 62%.
Oh, Reiner. Okay, get quaked on style. Lovely little quick punch right there, but look at that, the re-engagement coming through. Dan puts down some mines, and this is going to cut Reiner off from a huge amount of reinforcements. Luckily, a Seismic Slam will clear away a huge number of those, but Paris Eternal is still in control, Lemon, and capping this point is notoriously difficult because of that Pagoda in the middle providing a huge amount of cover.
Exactly. I mean, this was supposed to be flipped at 62, as I had called, but because of the stall from Wub and Dove, like you said, it was a bit of a ring around the rosy, so they were able to stretch another 20%, making it kind of, I would say, one last fight territory for Eternal. If they were to win that, then they would be in a good position to take the round. Now, the Gladiators have to close the gap, and they have the ults to do it. Mainly when you're using an Ana in this composition, you're more likely to nano the Doomfist. EMP at the top from Wub hits a few. Gladiators not immediately giving up the high ground as Shu and Skewed head down. The nano was given to Skewed just to keep him alive. The Transcendence ready if he wants to preserve his own life. As the Gladiators, well, Khan is preserving his life as well as he heads back to his friends, but I'm not sure about that one.
There's some bad juju on that trance right there, Lemon. Not a fan of that one. Paris Eternal, they invested heavily in this fight. They used so much, including the EMP and both for support ultimates. The thing here is, Paris Eternal have lost their ability to play from this defensive position, and it means they can no longer control where these engagements are happening. Ideally, Wub should be able to do that because they can attack from stealth, but Dan is so easy to track as he tries to set these up, but Shu is easily able to mitigate him with sleep darts as this happens.
Oh, that was a great hack from Wub onto Skewed, and then the immediate pile drop from Dawn forced out the Transcendence. Now Paris can just wait this out. Gladiators missing out on that advantage. That was, I mean, Khan lost his Transcendence last fight, so we kind of even things up. You still have an important Bob ultimate from Ons, who can just really throw this on the point if they want to hold on to the objective without them having to actually be present. But you got the supports of Gladiators who are getting harassed by Dove. Not too threatening. Ons is a little bit low. He gets healed back up. Ons needs to throw the Bob if he's in any trouble at all and hasn't really been threatened. Paris are down 2. Kevster with a pulse will not take care of the target initially, but still Wub is gone, and Gladiators have a number control. They've gone from 0 to 99 to almost 100 as the Bob from Ons is thrown on the point.
Khan tested by Kevster at the moment, and Kevster's feeling pretty invincible at this moment. Overtime still continues to tick as there is going to be Dove on the point, picking up a health fight to get a little bit more to try and work with here. But while Skewed is alive, everyone who streams in is going to be afflicted with a Discord Orb, and Dove slips on a banana peel, Lemon. No further contest here for Paris Eternal, despite an inspiring beginning to Oasis and to their mid-season madness run.
Yeah, Paris Eternal are just going to have to do a lot of work just in this stage in general, because the Midseason Madness does include how well you did and also the kickoff clash and the qualifiers before that. So Paris Eternal, maybe that's not even a goal of theirs, but the fact that they still got 82% was impressive. They took back-to-back fights, had first bloods a lot of these fights. It's just the thing of retaking is a question in their minds of how they're able to do it, especially when Khan wastes the Transcendence, and then Dawn gets found by these antis from Shu, and Skewed continues to be a menace on the Zenyatta.
Skewed popping out the C9, a little bit of mental warfare, nothing wrong with that. Arms, of course, we haven't really talked too much about the Ashe yet. I feel like it's been a little bit outpaced by the Dios and Paris Eternal as Werb has now moved over onto the Sojourn. In my personal opinion, I'm liking the Sojourn a little bit better in a couple of these different metas. But of course, Arms does have the knockback of the Coach Gun, which can't be understated in terms of its value. Speaking of knocked back.
That's Reiner besting Dawn for the moment, keeping the choke point on lock, where the Eternal don't really want to cross through. They might want to slip up to the left side where the high ground is, knowing where the Gladiator supports are. You kind of saw like a glimpse of Skewed and Shoot being up there, and Ons with the coach gun, like you said, is ready to fling anybody off who comes up the stairs.
And the same could be said of a punch as well. Dreidro doing their best to keep the backline alive. Reiner went too far, and this Anti's in the perfect position to cause Dreidro to die to dynamite.
Yeah, that's rough for the Eternal. I mean, they lost Dawn at the first fight. They've lost Dreidro, who is their main source of heals, especially after the buffs to Bab. The healing that Baptiste provides is really critical to these fights. And despite that, the DPS were able to get a ton of picks. I mean, Dove killed 2 or 3 that fight and somehow made it winnable.
Done with a supercharge as well. The supercharged punch knocks people off of the high ground, and that's the danger that is run when you play the high ground or even try to assault it. If a Doomfist is waiting up there, that easily charged knockback can send you sailing into the sea and straight back to spawn when your team needs you most. Dove with a pulse bomb in hand here might want to try and take out Shu early.
Oh, pulse! It sticks! And it gets skewed out of the picture. Shu nanos Reiner and hopes to get to the same trade. Lamp also gone for the Eternal. You see they're being assaulted. The anti thrown in the face of Dawn and Paris Eternal. Let's see how long they can really keep this objective without takes. Now without their main healer, it's up to Wub and Dub to just contest for as long as they can, as the Gladiators will get back in the driver's seat.
I think Jojo had a mistiming on his amplification matrix there, but still swaps away onto the Brigitte instead. And one of the interesting interactions we're going to have to look for here is the mutual stun. When the shield bash hits the punch from Reiner, Dreidro will make sure that both of them are stunned, and if Reiner is engaging into Paris Eternal, he'll be stunned in the middle of 5 very angry members of the Eternal themselves.
Shield broken from Dreidro. There's the engage from Reiner. Meteor strike, and he goes even deeper. Khan holding on to the Transcendence so patiently, not popping it as eagerly as he did in the last round. As Reiner's discorded, he summoned a lot of attention. He's finally finished off by Dove, who goes on the hunt, as Kevster gets the same trade. Now only a one-man advantage for the Gladiators, as they still have control of the objective. It's very back and forth, as Wub has been very safe over on Mini's side. Has now spotted the supports from the Gladiators on the high ground, and with one fell swoop, he could just jump up there, but he kind of missed that initial jump, as Reiner was hoping to take advantage of that slip-up, but Wub is still somehow living until Reiner gets the last laugh. And with Gladiators taking over that last fight, they've gone to 80% plus. This is last fight territory for the map win.
Sad fact is, Wub just didn't get enough value out of that overclock. Now, like you said, Lemon, one fight to rule them all for Gladiators, and there's plenty of ultimates to try and make something happen. Shu with a nano boost, but where do you put it? Onto Kevster, onto Reiner, off the map, maybe. Shu can't even bring it out, knocked off by Dawn.
This is last. Someone has to touch from the Eternal. It's last fight Transcendence from Khan, saved at the critical moment. Dove is missing. It's a 4-on-4. How will the Eternal turn this around against the Transcendence? It seems impossible. Overtime into effect. Eternal still get the touch. Dove is back in the picture, and Kevster is gone. Eternal are turning this fight around and conserving the ultimates they need to close the gap between 50 and 99.
I think a little bit of an ego flank there from Skewed. Not the best considered Transcendence I've ever seen. There wasn't really anyone even to be a good recipient of a healing. Only Kevster, who was milling around over there. And one of the things about Tracer when afflicted by the trance is that she's still incredibly vulnerable, because you can easily be one-tapped and take more than 150 damage in a single tap. Dove discovered, has that pulse bomb. The route of escape. Oh, they're going to recall back into the enemy team. Now it's do or die for Dove.
Oh, Dove had barely any blinks there. He barely got out. And almost could have delivered that pulse bomb to Skewed. And meanwhile, Shu has nanoed Reiner and has decided to peel for the supports. And Kevster flanks, gets the pulse on the Wub. There's no damage remaining for Paris Eternal. Dawn has been antied. And Gladiators with just sweep away that final fight without losing a single person. As Kevster stands tall in the Tracer duel, so will the Gladiators in map 1. They win Oasis.
A false friend for the Frenchman, the rally of Dreidro. It forced all of Paris Eternal forward to try and make up for the lack of blinks that Dove was having after that twice attempted escape from amidst of the LA Gladiators. But unfortunately, Dove just blinked a touch too far, did not have enough additional health, and actually blinked directly into the coach gun of Arns, ate a face full of buckshot, and it meant that there was not really enough DPS for Gladiators to be slain as they made their way in for that final fight, Lemon. This is, actually, I'm going to say it's a bit closer than I anticipated. Paris Eternal, for a pretty new damage line are looking hot to trot, really. Sure, they aren't beating the champions of the kickoff clash, but they are not looking like an 0-6 team, and that is a cause for hope for the Paris Eternal fans. Let's see if the hope can get any better after this break.
Those hoodies would make me real cozy, although it's summertime and I'm sweating. I'm sure the Eternal are sweating too, just trying to get everyone up to speed, especially their new rookie, Dove, who has been signed. But to be quite honest, there's no hopium here. I thought they looked kind of solid with the Sombra, Tracer, Hammond dive, and they even coordinated that quite well to win them the first initial fights on Oasis, just not enough to win the whole thing.
Yeah, the relium, I suppose. there's no delusion needed here, and that Paris Eternal did win a couple of those opening fights. And I think they did a really good job of identifying the lack of peel that was available for Los Angeles Gladiators when they were playing this Doomfist alongside a Ana and a Zen. And sure, it's maximum damage output with the Discord Orb and the Zen Orbs as well. Maximum healing to be able to pocket Reiner from a distance using the Ana. But when it comes to being able to keep each other safe, all those supports can really do is try and cross-heal each other. And that is not going to work out when you're against a 3-man dive. And that was quickly identified and exploited by the Paris Eternal. So the overall game planning, the IGLing, has given me a little bit of faith that Paris Eternal will not be on a complete downslide in the Midseason Madness, even if they aren't able to pull out a win against Gladiators today.
Well, they're hoping, Eternal are hoping to avoid more L-ing, I guess, by having those substitutions. We got Vestola coming in on the tank role, probably expecting some Sigma, whilst Patapan for the Gladiators coming in for Allens. When it comes to Patapan, we've seen anything from Sojourn in a Doomfist comp to Cassidy and May if Gladiators offer Rush. At least that's what we've seen so far post-patch.
Yeah, Vestola. Very good Sigma play. I'm excited to see them in Lemon. And Gladiators, Patapan. I wouldn't be too surprised to see the May, yes, from Patapan. They've been pretty great at that, alongside, of course, Reiner's Reinhardt. But at the moment, seems like it might be a touch more relaxed. On to the Sojourn instead, which is also, there's precedent for this in Gladiators' previous game in the Midseason Madness. On the other side, Wub. This Hanzo is potentially going to be kept. Of course, they are an attacker spawn, so it is subject to change. But Hanzo's been seeing a little bit more play, especially along these longer sightlines like you occasionally see on Colosseo. In just our last match, we saw, I believe, Merit playing quite a bit of Hanzo over on Colosseo. The real problem here for Paris Eternal, though, Lemon, is how they are going to get to the point without being interrupted by Reiner, because they are at their most vulnerable while moving with this Sigma composition.
Yeah, it's all about just keeping the accretion for the Reiner, but also just the Hanzo, the Ashe, the Sojourn. They're all kind of melting together in terms of their role as kind of a ranged DPS. Now, Wub on the Hanzo specifically, having that burst going to be important. Even a Sonic's not too bad if you want to look at who's inside of the building next to the point, who's in Metro. And most importantly, having the verticality to climb up is kind of the main identity for Wub on this Hanzo. The Sonic kind of not revealing Reiner around that corner. Paris Eternal are free to rotate in this back alley where they might want to check who from the Gladiators could be on the left side of that building. Now Wub in a ranged duel against the Gladiators hope to hold on to this point as the Eternal are still in rotation, and that's a great opening pick from Wub.
Against a Hanzo and Overwatch League, Lemon, you're always on a timer. Every free angle for Wub is a risk, Patapan. Was that a 90-degree flick onto Wub to shut down the Hanzo? I believe it bloody was. Los Angeles Gladiators now have a chance to re-engage, but of course, for now, waiting for their compatriots will be the more likely to actually result in a victory. 2 ticks will be given away, and Reiner contemplates how to move on in as Paris Eternal for a moment step off the point.
That's a great pick again from Colin. It was a 3-on-2 for the Eternal. And I like the Gladiators' choice to wait until the final tick, but it was only Reiner and Kevster, and as soon as Khan fragged Kevster, Gladiators kind of just ran out of damage to really have a good chance at turning this fight, unless Reiner was going to get a sick jump on the Dredro or Khan. But they're going to smartly play as far away from Reiner as possible and hold on to immortality for that reason. Now a pause has been called, so the Eternal did just cap too, so it's a good time to do it.
Okay, so let's have a quick talk about some of the weaknesses of this composition that Gladiators are playing at the moment and how those are exploited by Paris Eternal. With the Ana and the Zen, Lemon, neither of these supports is really able to get a good brawl going. They aren't great close-range combatants, even with Zen's buffed kick. And the thing is, with Kevster being taken out by Khan, that forced Reiner to be the one who is continuously having to keep that point contested. And once Doomfist is out of cooldowns, he's kind of a sitting duck and can't fight too well with the limited hand cannon ammo that he has. Without Kevster being able to tag in and out, Reiner had to feed on in, and there wasn't a support who could back him up close range with no Brigitte and no Lucio at his side.
Just not a bad performance, right, from the Eternal when it comes to Wub and Dove. I mean, Wub had 2 initial headshots to just kick off that entire fight, and Dove's performance against Kevster on the Tracer in map 1 wasn't too shabby either. Now Kevster's still edging him out in that case. And for now, as soon as I talk about someone in a good way, Wub gets sniped. So Gladiators, as soon as they have that pick, they just collapse onto the Eternal at the choke. It's exactly what the Gladiators want to do, with Reiner kind of excelling in that close range combat. So Gladiators will be able to hold the choke.
All right, Kevster was a little bit upsetty there. That began with Dove, I believe, actually sticking Skewed. We've seen that before on Oasis, and it forced out a trance there to keep Skewed alive. And Skewed just called, hey, if I'm using this trance, you might as well try and win the Tracer Door while I can keep up with you at lightning speeds of a Transcendence. Remember, though, that every time Gladiators take an open peek here, they are rolling the dice against Wub, and you know what those Nat 20s do. Out goes for Dragon Strike, and that scatters for Gladiators.
And that was also a play that if anyone was on the corner staircase, that would have been hard to get out of before the Dragon, you know, ate you up. So Eternal not getting much out of that, but they did get the chase down onto Reiner, so no front line for the defense. Patafan gets thrown into space by the grab flux of Vestola as Eternal gets some free card push. They have the high ground too. Kevster has to be careful. He has the pulse, and I'm sure he's eager. Going after Khan could force out the Transcendence too, but Gladiators can't afford to miss anyone else on this last fight.
Oh, can't actually use the Transcendence to avoid the Nano Reiner. This means that if Kevster can find a stick later on, things may change. Reiner, oh my goodness, Vestola maybe shouldn't have revealed himself in that area because he was heavily punished for doing so. And Reiner going to back off once again for a good amount of healing. Shu is dead, however, so this is still a risk.
Yeah, this is really good pacing from Reiner too. 100 HP, drops off the high ground, trades it off with Kevster. Patafan to go take over, and Eternal, yeah, they just get pulverized, so Gladiators are back on the high ground.
Dove building up to yet another pulse bomb. Not the quickest build here, but of course it hasn't been the longest fights either, and Skewed is ready to counter this once again with a Transcendence, the only ultimate that's currently on the point. And that is Paris Eternal. They've got to try and find a way to force Los Angeles Gladiators off of this high ground, because this is such a good area from which Padapan can operate for free, especially spamming down that Sigma Shield to get the railgun charge he needs to get those instant headshot frags that have become all too common in the Midseason Madness.
Yeah, the Gladiators also just have to be good at ult tracking. If Wub has a Dragon Strike, you definitely don't want to be playing in this hallway, and Wub gets another headshot. He's been really clean with those. Vestola finishes off Shu, and Gladiators really don't have much else. They need to leave or die on cart, and I think with the respawns, Gladiators will be able to recontest, but Skew thinks this is winnable. He vets the Transcendence to preserve his life for the last fight, but they lose that advantage, something that would have kept Reiner kicking so that he could be more aggressive. Now the Amp Matrix is up for Eternal, and the Gladiators are trying to avoid getting picked. And they're quite successful at doing so, minus losing a few. And Gladiators, as they take flanks around the Eternal, they pinch them from all angles, and Eternal don't really get to do much with the Amp Matrix.
Taking flanks is exactly the right word for it there, Lemon. 4 players of Gladiators surrounded Vestola on alternate angles at 90-degree increments to make sure that they could not all be shielded by Vestola's utility no matter what was happening. Surround and picked apart like crows just tearing through them. The Gladiators now, they have taken Paris Eternal under a minute in the time bank and built themselves up a hearty ult bank to chew and feast upon in the coming battles. Remember, if Padapan uses overclock as well, that beam begins to penetrate players, so you can start to get multi-kills and collaterals when you're in tight spaces.
I think the Sonic is so useful for Wub here, just knowing where Reiner is, if he's even charging up a punch, as he throws the Dragon just to force out some cooldowns for Reiner. Reiner's half HP, and he's chilling too because he has Meteor Strike. So Paris Eternal hope to take out the high ground and even some backline members. The grab flux only finds Padapan, but it's really not enough to even kill him. Padapan gets charged up off the shield and starts sniping at the supports of Eternal, who have to depend on Khan's healing, who's only pocketing Wub right now. Gladiators on the flank hoping to deal with that Wub situation, and as Eternal have their focus completely split from the flankers, from the takes of Gladiators, Eternal don't actually coalesce any focus at all and have lost control of the objective, and the Gladiators will hold them at this point.
Khan made a decision there with a Transcendence to keep Wub alive and hoping that Wub would be able to clutch. It meant Vestola was left to the 4 wins, Lemon, and the 4 wins tore him asunder. Paris Eternal. It's not unwinnable, but it's nowhere near what they wanted, considering the advantages they had on that second point of Midtown. Feels like again and again we saw one member of Los Angeles Gladiators be able to clutch up or demand attention in order to win out those fights. Reiner with some perfect management of dropping aggro by leaving the high ground with less than 100 HP, forcing Paris Eternal to make some more haphazard peaks to try and finish him, which allowed for the remainder of Los Angeles Gladiators to catch exposed members and tear apart Paris Eternal's real power structure to try and move on forward. Now though, Paris Eternal, they have Vestola in, playing the Sigma. Sigma's going to excel in trying to defend point A here. There's so much safety for Dredro, Khan, and Wub. And Dove, right now, is going to be playing like a German Shepherd dog. He's going to be trying to herd them into the sightlines, where Khan and Wub can do a huge amount of damage.
Yeah, Paris Eternal, I mean, it's no surprise that you might have some minor disconnects, right? You just signed a new DPS player, and with the composition of Paris Eternal, they kind of have this wait-and-see poke, where you saw how that didn't really work out if you don't actually translate that into any kills. Like, when it came to the end of point B Midtown, they sat there with AF Matrix, and Gladiators knew how to rotate around it. Gladiators are ult tracking well. They know what to expect and how to position around it, and once Paris do that initial damage, they need Dove to go and finish him off, and if Dove can't win 1v1s against Skewed, which total credit to Skewed, he's amazing, he's goated, then Eternal are just going to suffer at actually finishing off kills, which is the whole reason why they choked at point B. Now it's still a decent push, but you're going up against the Kickoff Clash champions who shouldn't have any problem doing that.
Yeah, if there's one thing about championship winning teams we know, it's that they are no strangers to clutching. For now, Padapan holding on to that 100 charge in the railgun, hoping someone's going to expose their head. Vestola's not that tempting a target. However, Dove certainly is. A lot more vulnerable. You can combo a body shot into a melee with the fully charged railgun to get an instant kill on a Tracer as well.
Oh, Wub shot in the face by Padapan. And that's just going to be rough for the defense. But they're just kind of sitting and waiting, and Wub recalls back, and Kevster's just finding more value immediately. Padapan is just jumping over the shields, and Paris Eternal dismantled in that first fight. So it's just coming off of those first picks where Gladiators just got luckier on that first fight.
All right, now, likely to move over to second. It doesn't seem like Paris Eternal are really posturing here for another contest, especially with Khan ready to back off onto high ground. And of course, Vestola not really fast enough to make that happen. This is once again going to be about a battle for the high ground if Vestola can get up there to try and keep Khan and Wub safe. But at the moment, playing from below in concert with Dove could easily be pushed into a less than desirable position by Reiner.
I mean, just Paris' combo is just naturally going to give up so much space because they want that range to keep Wub, Khan, Dredro, and Vestola safe. Dove just has to be, as long as Dove doesn't make any mistakes, he also has to make plays, but just don't get first blood in forehead, and Kevster's on the hunt to assure of that. Kevster throws the pulse, and I think it got Khan low, summons the immortality out of Dredro. The Ant Matrix is up there, and as Gladiators approach, they're getting shredded by that amplified damage. Vestola drops low to also contest the cart, so Gladiators aren't getting much push out of this.
Vestola unable to eat the slowing orb, and Padapan still holding on to this overclock here. Somehow still getting push on the cart. Vestola, of course, doesn't want to try and reveal himself to too many angles, and so allows that to move on forward. Still, it doesn't change that the objective continues to move. Paris Eternal need to cut off some of these stragglers and execute them, then crunch onto the cart with a numbers advantage. Otherwise, they're going to lose control of this fight real quick.
Ooh, the stick! Oh, it was actually onto Reiner. I thought it was onto someone else, but hey, you take what you can get, you know?
You take those kills onto Reiner, that much is for certain. Padapan trying their best to run away. Your slide nowhere near fast enough for Dove, but Kevster marking the entire way. And at this moment, Kevster's kind of stuck on marking Dove duty, where they are trying to make sure that Paris Eternal are forced into these duels that Los Angeles Gladiators are very confident that they can win at range.
So Reiner presents himself into the hallway, and you saw him go from 100 to 0 just immediately. Insane burst from Eternal, and that's the type of focus that they need to have with this composition. So as long as they keep an eye on their flanks, which Gladiators, you know, they love to flank, but Padapan, 100 charge, hoping to sneak up onto Khan, and Vestola again does a good job of scouting, so as long as you shut down those angles, Gladiators won't be able to get picks. And there's Reiner on the engage. Pretty sick anti from Shu too, force Eternal to hide. You got the disruptor from Wub just Oh, I think that was actually Patapan's Disruptor. It's not enough to really zone or do much. Here's a grab flux from Festola as Gladiators approach with Scoot's Transcendence. The nano from Shu onto Reiner. Gladiators have forced Eternal into an uncomfortable position, and Kevster gets to convert with the kills.
The fight in the room is so well managed with a Transcendence as well. Vestola's still up top, but remember, while moving as Sigma, that's when you're at your worst. For Transcendence, it can't keep Dredro alive, as the anti-nade has turned off for Zenyatta, Feelies, and the Heelys too.
Oh, Kevster. He's just a god at the Tracer. He's just getting multi-kills every map, and the Gladiators sail to the box of victory and will be going to series point.
Gladiators performing so well here on Midtown. I think they did a really good job of not feeling the need to change their composition, but instead changing the approach that they made. Reiner was getting destroyed in that room on the engagements, despite being able to do a huge amount of damage during them. So the key there was to instead give the nano over to Reiner and force the shield to go down from the Sigma with some displacement, having a weird change of the shield inside to try and block those nano shots, and that opened up the path for Shu to deliver a Bartek grenade that spelled doom for so many members of the Paris Eternal, and Khan was unable to really get much value out of Transcendences in this particular game because Khan was often so far away from those who really needed healing, or Shu was able to shut them down with the bios. Paris Eternal, they do need to try and tighten up some of these screws before we continue, and they're going to be able to do that during this break.
Welcome back, everyone. We go into maybe our potential final map between the Kickoff Clash champions, versus a team that didn't go there, but they're hoping to get somewhere one day, you know?
They one day succeed in some manner. Lemon Kiwi 2022.
I'm a glass half full type of person, you know? One day, better late than never.
You fill the glass, Lemon, and I'm going to drain it because we're going to Circuit Royale, which is kind of where Gladiators are at their best. This is where Shu and Scoot can continue to play the double flex support at its best. This is where Arns comes in and plays the Widowmaker, and there are very few people in the world who can hold a candle to Arns in Widow versus Widow. And that is worrying for the Paris Eternal. Now, don't get me wrong, Paris Eternal are doing better than I expected in this game, and they are going up against the champions as an 0-6 team. No one in their right mind thought Paris would win. And I don't think anyone thinks that Paris Eternal are going to win the Circuit Royale either. But I think at the moment, Paris Eternal, they're kind of in that formulation stage. We're in that experimental stage where they're just getting used to playing as a team, playing under pressure in these official matches, and maybe we'll be able to pick up some map wins and maybe even the elusive match win in some of their easier matchups against non-championship status teams.
Yeah, like, Eternal are like an Eevee right now, but you haven't even hit level 25. Like,
what stone will we use, Lemon?
Yeah, I mean, you can't even start thinking about stones. Yeah, you gotta get them to level 25 first. And when it comes to this Widow mashup, now, I've been hearing that Dove does have a Widow. If they do hope to use that at all, we'll have to see. I know sometimes teams, if you don't think you can win the Widow 1v1, sometimes you can just go with flankers. We've seen even some Sombra Tracer from the Paris Eternal on the first map, but for now they're hovering over the double sniper. So yeah, Eternal, they're leveling up, while as the Gladiators, they've always been good. So it's almost like we have such a high expectation for them, and they continuously are meeting that there's no concern for the Gladiators.
See, I'm actually very happy to see Paris Eternal play with double sniper here rather than a single sniper and say Genji in conjunction, because this means that even if Arns feels confident in the Widow duel against Dove, they still have to worry about a second angle, because if you ignore either one of these snipers as a Widowmaker, you are going to get hit in the side of the head and you are going to suffer. Forcing Arns to be a little bit more choice with the angles that are taken. Oh, for a second there, I thought it was going to be an illegal maneuver. It's okay. Everyone behaves on the LA Gladiators for now. And Kevster's going in deep. Already very low here, Lemon.
Yeah, it's not illegal if you can just fly over it, right? So clearly Kevster, if he's expecting a sniper, I mean, I don't know if they were expecting two, Kevster's going to try and overwhelm them. And that's when you bring a Pharah to this double hit scan, you're really testing the mechanics of the Paris Eternal. And if I had to have like one final note about the difference between these two teams in Midtown, I would say it's pure mechanics. Like from Skewed, I think being my player of the match, fragging out against Dove, but when Wub has those lineups, when he has Stormbow, it doesn't matter how good of a Pharah you are, Wub has still been mechanically solid, but I'm not sure if holding a candle, like you mentioned before, to the Gladiators.
That conflux of fire that just evaporated Kevster. I was like, hold up, Kevster. You might be 2-0 up, you might be reigning champs, but we aren't bad at Overwatch, okay? I think Dove, Wub, and Khan all hit a something simultaneously, so the Mercy Pocket was essentially useless in that case. Kevster instead moving over, still with some mobile Sombra, and the Slow Orb is going to be eaten by Vestola, but so too is Vestola's shield, going to be chomped on up by the combined fire of the LA Gladiators.
Yeah, Eternal hoping to hold this corner. Reiner already starting to overwhelm Vestola, who's had to use the grasp. Discord orbs on those tanks. Vestola dangerously low, can't afford a pick, but Dredro's been sniped by Skewed. And at least you get that trade, and that's a fantastic pick from Dub. He's gonna reposition to the high ground. He's going up against Ons. He connects on the headshot, but it wasn't fully charged up. Now he's getting assaulted by Kevster, who's now getting behind the Eternal, and they're nowhere to be found. So that's a .8 cap from Gladiators.
Doesn't matter what hero he's on, Kevster is always playing Tracer. He's already Tracer, Lemon, so no one else can pick them. Kevster going to be joining Reiner here in a little bit of a frontline battle just to try and make sure Paris Eternal can't access that much space for free. Wub has swapped over onto the younger Shimada brother here. Ooh. And Dove, he's pretty sharp, Lemon. He's pretty sharp.
Yeah, even sharper with Infrasight buff, but still a great grab flux engage from the Eternal. And you see, I mean, Dove still connected onto a headshot onto Ons. It just wasn't all the way at 100% for him to get the actual pick. And Gladiators, especially if Ons and Dove aren't settling this, Kevster's going to get involved and push Eternal back. And there's Dove waiting for the jump, and you can't ego chow like that.
Oh, Ons is having a bit of trouble at the moment against Dove. Yet to even build an infra site. Dove's on his way to his second. And admittedly, while I was happy to see the double sniper, Wub's Genji was one of the things I called out at the beginning of this match as one of the hopium suppliers for Paris Eternal fans in the previous kickoff clash meta.
So Ant Matrix right in the middle of the map there from Dredro, just maybe zone off Gladiators while Vistola was low, and Gladiators fight back, grab Flux up, and it's countered by Khan's Transcendence, so Eternal now have time to rotate back to the high ground where they have the advantage, while the Gladiators hope to round this corner using Ant Matrix of their own, but because of that high ground advantage, the supports from the Gladiators are so vulnerable, and they're exposed by the hit scan of Eternal, who managed to get a few picks, but as soon as Gladiators climb up, as soon as they set up an Ant Matrix, the Eternal fall like dominoes, and that's a great fight for the Gladiators.
Now Khan and Dredro, all they can do here is die, Lemon. Gladiators have been stalled significantly as they go around the hairpin turn, but Dove cannot be underestimated, and Kevster knows that. Another body shot, and you are out of there, son. Arns stands ready with an infra sight, but look at this, almost lapped by Dove, so it's going to be able to be instantly answered by the defensive Widowmaker.
No one can hide.
Dove infra sight. Really not much he can poke at. Vestola has to make a bit of space, and you kind of just want to play chill until you have grab flux. Eternal can just play this corner, regenerate their shields. The Gladiators have to push into them if they hope to capture this cart. And you see Reiner and friends getting pushed into as soon as the shield breaks. And Skew's going to buy that real estate right back with the Transcendence resources for the Gladiators. Vestola and friends from the Eternal didn't back away fast enough. So Vestola gets just surrounded, and the Gladiators fight from front to back and capture point B. So Eternal, well, they lost out.
It is not a fun experience to play the Brigiser against Venu's End when he's just kicking you away while you're trying to mace him. However, there is a silver lining here, and that's that you just use for Transcendence, which means Wub can maybe get a touch more done with this blade. The sad part of Wub's blade is that there's nothing to really increase the damage it does. Still going to be limited to 110 per swing unless you're swinging on a target that has been discorded. So Wub and Khan, they need to be incredibly clean with their comms here if Wub really wants to get some huge value out of this blade, and Khan's already dead. Oh no.
That's a pick for Ons. Dove trades it right back, 4-on-4, but a grab flux advantage as Wub hopes to finish off the targets, deals with Reiner, goes into the back after the supports, and a clean fight win from the Eternal as they stabilize.
I like the usage there of the Gravitic Flux, forces out Shoes and Mortality Field, and after that there's no real onus, no real force that will keep them alive against the Wub Dragon Blade, even with its more nerf to damage. Wub actually decided he's going to stick with the Genji here, believing that multiple members of Gladiators are going to be vulnerable against the up-close and personal battles. And certainly Arns might be, but Kevster could have some surprises up his sleeve.
Some cart push, maybe. Gladiators will maybe force Paris Eternal to make a decision to fight now or to contest the card. Vestola jumps into the back line. Gladiators a little bit split maybe from each other as they group back up. Kevster hoping to snipe away at Wub and Khan while he's charged up, but mechanically isn't getting there. So Eternal were able to disengage, and now want to engage on the Kevster who's been isolated, and the Transcendence from Khan will assure of that aggressive push from the Eternal as they're still claiming bodies.
Okay, interesting support ults happening here. Shu with the window on the flank, but Havanovic ain't, mate. This is Circuit Royale, and it's an entirely different scenario. Paris Eternal answer with the Transcendence, but admittedly, now that has opened up the gates for Reiner to try and do a huge amount of damage. Regretting Flux for the engagement. This is unstunnable, Lemon.
Oh, that's good, but he did some good initial damage, but Dredro's rallying, so that gets all healed back up. Gladiators having issues just going through the main choke, and as soon as you show your face, well, Dub's sniping it off, so it's about can Gladiators really just get any other angle than this. They only have an option of 2 doorways, so Gladiators just have to hope for picks.
It's been a while, Lemon, but Dove's Widow, this does put a smile on some Paris Eternal fans' faces. A veteran of North American contenders has played against Reiner more times than you and I would care to remember. Vestola making a big engagement here into Reiner, who manages to stun away their co-Sigma.
And Gladiators also snuck to the left doorway in the Transcendence from Skew just to counter the grab flux. And you had Wub try to dive Kevster as he went through that left hallway and was unsuccessful. I mean, actually, he did get the trade onto Wub, so Kevster and Wub gone, but mainly, Gladiators were able to get through this main choke. They only have 9 seconds, though. It took them forever to do so. You got a window from Shu, maybe hoping to jump up to the second level where the Eternal are resting, but Gladiators for now just want to maximize this push and now can no longer leave the cart as overtime starts.
Eternal have choices to make here. Do they try and play for the Transcendence and the Blade, or do they make an earlier engagement and stop this cart a little bit earlier than it previously was? Wub forced to disengage here as there's a wraparound to maybe try and isolate Skewed. However, the sightline is played, and Shu takes a risk here.
At least he jumps up just to scout where Dove is, and at the very back, Transcendence from Khan just to help Vestola beat everyone down, and it's pretty successful at doing so. He's killed 2, and Khan with the 3rd and 4th. Paris Eternal will stop the Gladiators from fully capturing the map.
Can they stop it? Yes, they can, Lemon. What a wait there for the Transcendence. Paris Eternal decided not to make everything happen too fast, but instead to be a touch more patient. Wait for Khan to hit those orbs as he inexorably would. The design would not be stopped, and the plan was pulled on off with no real way to separate the Sigma of Vestola from the healing of the Transcendence, because you didn't have an anti. Remember, Vestola could just go in and throw D20s until the cows came home, really. Paris Eternal, they managed the stop, but this is by no means a one map just yet. Los Angeles Gladiators with an admirable 66.8 meters and 2 fully completed points, which is not too common here on Circuit Royale.
I think Dove also had a solid performance on the Widow, getting a few critical headshots on point B. Eternal drained a lot of time on that point B, and even when Gladiators went through and captured C, Paris Eternal had a really good understanding of the map and just the choke points that they had to hold with that Sigma composition. Now Gladiators, it just came down to when they were going to use their ults to really overwhelm that part of the map. So I felt like that was pretty even, and still a very good push from the Gladiators eventually. The Kevster Pharah immediately kind of losing them time, but it was nice to kind of just have that aggressive kickoff from the Pharah, just to be aggressive up in the Eternal space to get more space for the Gladiators. But now we're back to the double sniper from the Eternals attack. And Kevster, you know, no Pharah here, obviously.
Yeah, no Pharah this time. Even with a little bit of vertical cover that is available on these corners. Arns has been pinged, and so doesn't dare take any early peeks. Oh, hello. Nice little bit of leading there from Wub. Keeps Arns honest and keeps him hiding to make sure that Paris aren't going to lose people too early before this major corner, which is going to be a huge point of contention.
That's a lot of space. That's a lot of space. Yeah, that's a great push from Eternal so far. Clearly winning the shield duel against Reiner, but now it's the next corner you have to vanquish, where Reiner, he knows how to cycle the shields well, and he's demanded to just be flexible. Anything from the Reinhardt to the Sigma to the Hammond and more, but Reiner's shield broken, and he stands tall right in the face of danger. And without that Sigma player, there's just no space to be held for the Gladiators as they hope to just get picks naturally from Kevster. I think that's over on the staircase. Shu's in the middle of the road, throws an immortality onto the cart so Kevster can swoop in, but really has no impact at all as the Eternal will cap A.
Yeah, Eternal's initial push there, Lemon, around that main thrust of the area, around that corner, really meant that they couldn't be bogged down, and there was no second fight that could be forced by the LA Gladiators, even with Shu saying, "Get him, Frisbee! Get him, Immo Field!" Unfortunately, it's not the most dangerous of utilities, and could only keep Kevster alive for a couple of moments as Wub prepares for a Dragon Strike against a potentially unsuspecting LA Gladiators.
Oh, this is a really good Dragon that actually separates the two members of the Gladiators, and you see Shu just kind of walk walks back, thinking he was safe, right into the dragon, and without that healing, and Skew doesn't have Transcendence yet, but he will in a few seconds, and that'll be what Gladiators need to hold on, but the card is still a few meters away, so they could also wait for Shu to get back, as Gladiators don't want to show their face without him.
The timer looking strong here, Lemon, but so too is the ult of Reiner. Against Festola here, it's going to be evenly matched. Who can be stunned, though, is the question. Reiner might actually be taken off the cart, and so Scoot has to come in to contest with a trance.
Well, that was so close to being stunned out, but Festola gets the initial damage. It's countered by Scoot's Transcendence, 1 meter away, and the Gladiators have to stay on it, and it's so tough without any healers. Complete, domination from Eternal on that attack, and just pulling the trigger first pays off. They have 5 minutes to get to that box of victory. Everyone predicting 3-0s for the Gladiators, but this is looking pretty winnable for the Eternal.
And coming into this, I said that Gladiators would always win on this particular map, right? This is supposed to be where Uns is just showing best Widow in the world kind of looks, but instead being cowed into submission again and again by Dove, who's proving themselves maybe a rookie, maybe from NA contenders, may not be a ex-champion superstar, but is still bloody scary.
Now it's the fight for the coast side and the high ground, and the Gladiators wipe away at the Eternal, but it's pretty fine. You weren't really expecting much from the Eternal in that case because they just don't have any ults, and this will be maybe a few fights to, or a fight or two to generate those. And then the ult fight is what I'm going to be curious about. Will that be enough? Because Eternal are only 1 fight away from the box of victory and taking a map.
Speaking of ults, Kevster, if he could end this with a single overclock, that would be huge. The conflux of headshots, 2 at once onto Reiner, 1 for each eye, and there's nothing left for the main tank of Gladiators. And now this space has to be given away. Who's going to come in and contest this? Because we're getting mighty close to that box of victory as Arns opens up this can of worms.
Oh, and Kevster had to swoop in and almost sacrifice himself, but the immortality from Shu survives for a very long time, so Kevster lives. Can't say the same about Ons, as you got a brawl on the card for the map win for the Paris Eternal, and several more fights to go for the Gladiators that they hope to hold and make this a clean sweep series. As for Eternal, in that last fight, we're trying to get creative with the positioning. They had already lost Wub, I think, to Ons, so it was already a fight that favored the Gladiators.
Oh. Coming in towards the end there, Wub with that opening pick onto Reiner. Looked pretty dire for Los Angeles Gladiators, but the immortality field and Kevster rolling in at the same time managed to keep that cart just where it needed to be until Reiner had returned. Now though, a huge amount of space has been lost for the LA Gladiators. Playing from more defensive positions means that Paris Eternal can get more setup room for free, Lemon, and that means Wub has a lot more freedom as to where this Dragon Strike goes.
Yeah, Paris Eternal have a lot more options on the positioning for their snipers, while Gladiators only have to go towards the pool window, and Reiner has to drop. He can't really shield those snipers anymore. He has to contest the cart. As a Graflux or Festola, he's aiming for those supports, and Shu is still safe. It does force out the immortality, but Reiner gets pushed off the cart, so the Paris Eternal take a back.
Paris Eternal taking a map against the reigning champions, and on the one I least expected. An unbelievable performance from a newcomer. Dove straight out of NA contenders, baby, into the frying pan. And Arns, one of the most lauded snipers in Overwatch history, gets his mettle tested by a young North American hopeful. Paris Eternal start it up on map number 3, and I'm not going to say the cursed words, but Los Angeles Gladiators, their 2 losses have come from the unspoken curse.
Yeah, Reiner just was not able to hold any space. I mean, Paris had 5 minutes for point C. And at the end, guess what? Los Angeles Gladiators had to hold for 4 minutes, and Reiner just stepped off the cart. I'm not sure what forced him to be overwhelmed like that, but it was a flub from the Gladiators. We'll see if the Eternal can stretch maybe another map after this break.
Hometown heroes, please give it up for Team Thailand.
For me, it's always about Patapan. That guy's so good.
Yeah, he's a nutty guy.
Only 15 years old, only recently turned 15 as well.
Where he's going from. They're just going straight down the blade, straight into the back line. He's picked up 3. Pan with the 4K. He's 15 years old.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people becoming Patty fans after seeing his performances on the Doomfist. This kid, rather, has just been phenomenal. It's so unfortunate how young he is because so many people would love to see him in the Overwatch League.
Patapan's just going to clean up now. How does this lad do it?
Patapan is one of those people who were like, okay, you're going to be the star of Overwatch League in about 3 years.
He was held back by age restrictions. You have to be 18 to perform in the Overwatch League. So it's been, a rough 3 years. Him trying to make a name for himself in contenders. He swapped games at one point as well, and then decided to come back this year to the Overwatch League when eligible to try and get this trophy.
It's going to be Patapan that tries to let him go straight away. It's going to be a nano attack from him as well. A lot of damage on the back line, and there it is. 4 kills from Patapan. Jaw hits the ground, even he can't believe it. He comes up with the ace, and look at the pressure come off his shoulders. He's feeling good.
He had a slow start to the season, but yesterday, I think he had his best match so far. Absolutely dominated on that soldier, and that is important for the Gladiators because that seemed to be that missing piece for them in some of the reverse sweeps that they had to deal with so far this season.
The Dallas Fuel, he comes back, Reiner in the fray, but Patapan free firing on the Fuel.
Paddy on the flank.
The visor from Patapan on the back, the big grab from Harbin, the nade on top, but the Gladiators are just tearing them apart! Can't get to the bottom, they can't do it, the Gladiators have done it! With a victorious war, the Gladiators extinguish the Fuel's flame and secure the Kickoff Clash title!
They've set the benchmark high, and you can tell how much this means to Patapan.
It means everything to me. We did it. Finally, we did it. and I did it as well.
A DPS legend and a mythos crafted over half a decade brought Padapan from contenders to a Overwatch League title. But when we think about newcomers to the league, I'm looking over at the Paris Eternal. Dove, in his first ever match in Overwatch League, has just taken a map off of our reigning champions in the Los Angeles Gladiators.
And I think it did come down a lot to DPS at the end of the day. Reiner, you saw, was getting overwhelmed a lot. The shield was breaking and causing him to either die or just give up space for the Gladiators. I mean, you're talking about the Paris Eternal, who had 5 minutes for point C, who didn't really lose any fight, just had continuous push. And I think that was all based on the Hanzo v Sojourn matchup of Wub on the Hanzo. Now he, because of his Stormbow, he gets to continuously just shred the shield of Reiner, forcing him back and back and back, whilst Kevster on the Sojourn. Now, you could, I don't know if it's really a shield breaker, but really Kevster's role was to jump in and maybe get a pick, which you saw kind of him besting Dove and Wub at certain points where odds couldn't win the Widow 1v1. But besides like a singular pick every now and then, Kevster's impact wasn't justifying the Sojourn, which gave Paris Eternal just consistent neutral pressure, which won them fights without them even having to kill anything.
And that neutral pressure is going to be so important here, as I expect Reiner to likely roll out on the Reinhardt. However, the Doomfist may once again be opted in here for LA Gladiators. And I suppose this is a little bit of a shift in identity here for Gladiators, who have been one of the more versatile teams when it comes to what they decide to play. However, it feels like they've settled into realizing that Skewed and Shu might be one of the best support lines in the league to play this double flex, and really trying to make the Ana Zen work. As we've pointed out before, it does lack a little bit when it comes to peeling for each other, but when they see Vestola in on the side of Paris Eternal, I bet Shu and Skewed feel much more safe to play this, because they know that Vestola can't get on top of them with a ball like Dan can.
Yeah, if you think back to how Midtown went with a similar composition for Paris, I mean, Dove was just having issues mechanically trying to best someone like Skewed on the Zenyatta. He was able to get the chase down onto Reiner, and I think that has to be Dove's role. And when it comes to these mechanical exchanges, Padapan bests Wub. Now the initial pick will give Gladiators control of the robot, although Vestola isn't eager to giving up statue control, and with the rest of his team maybe backing away, Vestola's taking a lot of damage. This is charging up Padapan, who can really easily just jump past Vestola and pick off the supports, and Paris Eternal are really overstaying their welcome.
Dove is for now guarding Timmy though, and also managing to pick up Padapan from the back. Still there hasn't been much gained. Less than a third of a meter, or rather 2/3 of a meter for the LA Gladiators. Moving on forward, Paris Eternal get the final control of Timmy, begin pushing the barricade forward, but remember that Dove here can't stay in this lane for long, because Shu will not miss those shots when you're out in an area with little cover. Los Angeles Gladiators, they need to try and rejig their method of attack. With Vestola having returned, safety can once again be guaranteed for Khan, Wub and Dredro.
Yeah, you're just hoping like Dove has really good understanding of this map and how to flank around it. Not really known for his Tracer, but obviously putting a lot of time into it. And meanwhile, Gladiators, there's no doubt that they're just constantly getting these first bloods in these fights. But Eternal, even through that last fight, they know how to turn these 4v5s around, but it's a pulse on the Kevster. But the lamp was still active there from Dredro as he tried to play off the Matrix. Paris Eternal were too stubborn to leave that ultimate alone. And the Gladiators, they just shove and bully them away. Even Reiner at 25 HP still won't back down.
And Reiner surviving all of this means Shu gets a bonus towards that next nano as well. But Larson was put onto Reiner in the first place. Paris Eternal sent reeling away. I didn't even see where Dredro used that window. I think it might have been in the underpass there, but Wub couldn't get behind it and do the majority of damage that he wished to. On the other side, Khan is at least outpacing Skewed when it comes to the Transcendence, but what will that be answering? Do you want to try and use that in conjunction with the overdrive when the one-shots are so prevalent from the headshots of the beam?
We'll have to see. Dove almost getting the chase down, but kind of redirects his attention towards the supports now that he had the full spawn, but maybe finishing off Reiner would have been more important, especially with how low he was at 25% health. Meanwhile, you got a Paris Eternal lead, but Gladiators hoping to close that real quick. Gladiators have that top metro control, which is great. You see at 100 charge, Patapan hoping to connect onto something, and does get dangerously close to killing Wub as he's antied. Paris Eternal are hiding, and Vestola tries to fire back with the grab flux, but it's really not doing anything to the Gladiators, who are just continuously shoving Eternal into a locker.
Patapan's got that magic evasive footwork. I don't know what it is. He's dodging the bullets like he's in the Matrix or something. Paris Eternal have been sent reeling here for now. And Los Angeles Gladiators, they're going to be in a great position here to try and grab this checkpoint and get the forward spawns as well, unless Dove wants to triple blink in, but I doubt that's going to be the case. And there it is. On the other side, Webb wants to retake with the overclock.
Oh man, this is just getting worse and worse for the Eternal, and now you lost one, you're forcing a transport on 5, you're hoping to get the pick, and you killed Shu, but Scoot has Transcendence, so Gladiators won't be backing down, and they go after the support of Eternal. There's no resources remaining, and the Gladiators already have a pretty decent lead, and it's only going to get worse from here.
And right there we have an illustration of one of the reasons why I think the Sojourn is so much better at the moment than the Ashe, and that's because of the prevalence of Zenyatta. However, you can one-shot squishies through the Transcendence if they're less than 250 health if you hit a headshot on a fully charged Sojourn railgun. And I think that that's an invaluable asset to have when these Transcendences are being built up so quick by Zenyatas that aim this well.
Kevster having close to Pulse, and Dove has to connect onto something here. The Eternal need a miracle. They have 5 minutes to do so, and that's a good one. You finish off Reiner. Kevster's dead too. Now the Eternal, they have control of the bot. This fight win and this cleanup will get them back to maybe their original destination, but it's how they need to win another fight just to extend closer to the Gladiators mark of 70 somethings. And you're going up against the Gladiators who almost have 3 ults.
Yeah, we managed to turn off a forward spawn, so that's about it thus far. Now, finally, the barricade progress begins to move on forward. Gladiators so close to both Reiner's ult and Patapan's as well, so Reiner can get out of dodge if they wish to.
Oh, a strike from Reiner and stunning up Paris Eternal, who just hope to stay safe in these pack rooms. But Gladiators, they surround them, and they take the risk to actually enter inside of it. Kevster with the 1 clip on the con is not something Dove's been able to do to Skewed, and that's the Gladiators difference that you're seeing. And with this fight win, Gladiators, they'll get back to their original destination, even maybe get forward spawns, and the Paris Eternal are continuously playing from behind.
Kevster at least will have to come from all this way away, Lemon. But Paris Eternal, their only real tool to stop this is going to be the Gravitic Flux. And what can stun it? Either an aerial punch from Reiner or even a sleep from Shu. But for now, Gladiators, they're willing to play this patiently until Reiner has the position he wishes for.
Oh, Vestola's completely surrounded. He's going to go for a grab flux, maybe just to avoid Reiner's punch while he's nanoed. But Vestola gets the initial damage, but it's immediately countered by Skew's Transcendence. Everything that Eternal have, Gladiators have an answer for. Now, Dredro's dead, Khan's dead, and that's another lost fight for the Eternal, as the Gladiators will extend their lead even more.
And Paris Eternal, they're going to be lacking in resources to try and stop this from moving forward, especially if Shu and Skewed can get themselves up into this mini-pack room, get some high ground to operate from and to free cast from as a Zenyatta or as an Ana. For now, Shu is on barricade duty, but look at where Patapan and Skewed are. It's going to be absolutely free in there unless Dove can hit a mad stick.
Opportunity to stabilize for the Eternal, especially with Reiner missing. Vestola got dangerously low, but he's healed back up, and that's important for Dredro to get Am Matrix up. The Eternal need as many tools as they can to just win back-to-back fights without losing anyone. Pulse, Patapan will be dislodged from the top metro. Dove recalls and kind of redirects his attention towards Reiner, and that focus fire is enough to take care of Reiner, but Eternal aren't in the most comfortable position either without Wub. You got a 4-on-4, so Eternal, although they won the fight just to get them out of spawn, they're back at this neutral position.
And there's just constant Timmy trolling going on as well from Kevster and from Reiner to make sure the bot is not making significant progress and in fact is moving back the other way. Now with these supports clocked in the pack room, Dredro's forced to use the Immo field, Lemon.
Will Dredro get the help he needs? And not really Khan, not around or maybe in sight to want to use the Transcendence, or not feeling like this fight is really winnable, but he uses now to preserve his own life. And Dove recalls, hoping to get some of that healing. So with that Transcendence, Eternal maybe hoping to hold on to Pac's side, but it's questionable that Khan uses it then, but not to save Dredro in that moment. 100-meter push to 46 with 2.5 minutes, and Eternal are using ults just to put a band-aid on a sinking ship. It's just looking really rough.
Another minute passed and Timmy still isn't really moving in any significant manner. Reiner has Vestola in his sights. No rock, no problems for the Reinhardt god, even when he's playing on the Doomfist. Patapan may have fallen and Shu will as well, but coming up close, Reiner unable to defeat Khan, and Skewed may have overplayed his hand here with the transfer touch, but in the midst of all of this, Wurp has fallen and Kevster can now once again get back to Timmy trolling.
Well, Gladiators are fine. They could just continue to just hold this middle of the map because they don't have to push past 100 meters. It's Eternal that have to really force Gladiators away, and it's going to be up to Ultimates and how you cycle them. But Eternal keep trying to flip these 4v5 fights, and it's not working out, so you're wasting ults, and you're not able to have any tools of success to get past that point. Now with Dove missing, Eternal are behind again, 4v5, as Kevster hopes to extend and go after Dredro, who is now on the Mercy, hoping now with the new Guardian Angel jump that they could just stay in the air and out of sight and out of mind, but it's not really happening. The supports of Eternal just have no safe place.
Dredro swapping onto the Mercy, caught out in the bus stop, but I'm afraid it's only a VIP ticket home for the young Frenchman. Paris Eternal scattered once again to the Eldritch winds, and Vestola, once again, so much lies on this young European hopeful's shoulders. A gravitic flux to try and turn this around. 47 seconds in which to try and be dominant to win every single fight. Dredro gets skeet shot.
Yeah, the only thing about the Guardian Angel is you can, as the drop happens, you can kind of read this quite easily, and Patapan just does just that. So as you're dodging a Tracer, now you have to worry about the ranged hit scan of Patapan, who just doesn't miss those. Gladiators hoping to fully cap, and this is just an ego move. They don't even have to push this far, but they're gonna make sure that they get their revenge for missing out on Circuit Royale. Eternal having to use Transcendence and Spawn just to move Gladiators away. It's sort of successful at doing so. They've killed Patapan and Reiner, but 120 or 125 meter push to 46. The clock is winding down, and so have the hopes of the Eternal. And there's just no chance you can make this 0 to 100 comeback, and they barely have control of Timmy themselves, even with respawn advantage. Paris Eternal unable to touch. The Gladiators will be taking the final map in the series.
Just in the end there, another cool play from Skew, dodging the point-blank accretion, using the Transcendence to body block it for someone else. What a performance to finish off here from Gladiators after a somewhat shaky showing on Circuit Royale, the map that I believe they were most inclined to win, but Dove sure showed me, and sure showed the fan base of Paris Eternal as well, that no Glister, no worries, we're fine.
Yeah, I think mechanically and just map awareness, mechanics, just everything, the preparation, the Gladiators, just back-to-back wins. I mean, the only losses that the Gladiators have are to reverse sweeps like at the start of the season. They are your kickoff class champions for a reason, and they are going to be the team to beat. While as the Eternal, they took a map. And at this point of the stage, I think they've only won 4 thus far. This is going to be their 5th. So to just take a map against the Gladiators is something to still applaud, despite them just bringing in Dove on super short notice with Glister missing.
Hey, think of it this way, Paris Eternal fans, you just increased your map count by 25%, even if you are 0-7, but that's okay. There are easier opponents out there than the LA Gladiators, but when it comes to the LA Gladiators, we've got to heap praise on this more innovative support line. Playing the Ana and the Zen, it's been a while since it's really been meta. It only really took hold before in previous epochs of Overwatch over on Dorado, where we saw a lot of teams playing both the Ana and the Zen to take advantage of long sightlines. However, now it appears to be the standard fare for LA Gladiators, and it's the Zen that I want to zoom in on for our player of the match, Lemon, and that is going to be Skewed, who may be one of the world's best Brigators, but is also a damn sight good on the Zen too.
And especially in this meta with the buffs to Zen, we're so glad to see Skewed get so much more playtime. And especially mechanically, he's just not he's not a vulnerable support player whatsoever. It made Dove's job so incredibly difficult as a Tracer to get behind there, because Skewed is just the #1 target, and I never really saw Skewed ever struggle. I think there was even a stat line in Midtown where he went 4-0. He never died. So that's just the power of just the accuracy that Skewed has on a hero like Zenyatta.
And there's also the call-out that needs to be made that Skewed changed his playstyle considerably after Oasis, when even though Gladiators won that fairly handily, he did get picked off by the initial dives of Darn, Wub, and Dove together. And after that, there was a team change-up to make sure that Skewed was a little bit more safe, and it came from his own positioning, but also from a little bit more care being taken to mark the opposing DPS. And Gladiators still showing the potential to iterate means that they are still very dangerous as far as teams go, even if right now they are dropping a couple maps here and there. But Lemon, when it comes to matchups, I think we might have a bit of a closer one coming up after break. It's going to be Dallas versus Atlanta, and it's going to be a doozy. Don't go anywhere.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Upper Deck, the official trading card of the Overwatch League. And by TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier of the Overwatch League. Welcome to our game break. Zoe here, joined by Danny as well as Costa. And we got another match to break down. Quite frankly, Paris Eternal, they did make the Gladiators fight for it. I do think they had some good looks there as well. And I personally was very impressed with what we saw from Dove. This was the first time we saw him in. We didn't really have anything to go off of. And I think he held his own, Costa.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dove, the best debut you could hope for, considering it was against the Los Angeles Gladiators.
Oh, yeah.
That's a tough sell sometimes. I'm like, welcome to the league. Here's Kevster. It can be hard to deal with that kind of thing, but also on his Widowmaker on Circuit Royale, he went absolutely crazy on that Widowmaker, going toe-to-toe with Arn. So bright future for Dub and the Paris Eternal on the back of him. There were some good looks from the Paris Eternal. They have that Dawn in to come and play that Wrecking Ball, that dive style with the Zen and the Brig, and then they also played Vestola on the Sigma.
Right.
It's all coherent. I think it all makes sense. They look much improved from what they were in the last tournament, but just not enough to get over the Gladiators.
I do also want to feel like, Gladiators. They're the Gladiators, right? They won the Kickoff Clash Championship. Like Costa said, I think going into this match, I didn't really have any opinion about the Paris Eternal, but I was actually very impressed with their performance today against the Gladiators.
Yeah, against any other team, this might actually result in that evasive W they're chasing.
Yeah.
That's it. Patty Pan as well, he picked it up on the Soldier in the Kickoff Clash, was highlighted with a really awesome video there in the middle of that series. But Patty Pan showing up on that Sojin as well, putting that aim to good use. Seems like he's a lot more comfortable on this Gladiators team. And honestly, I just like everything about this Gladiators. They're looking to be the team to beat once again here in this Midsummer tournament. Skewed flexing his muscles on the flex support on that Zenyatta as well, Danny. You were talking about how you liked it.
Yeah, no, I do. I think this right now, the meta's not set in stone yet, but I just love how right now we're seeing a lot, all the supports are getting more spotlight, whether it's the BAP or the Zen. I think it's a good time to be a support player right now.
Yeah. It really is. And they're not just in the backlines, right? They're playmakers. They're the ones opening things up right now. And that's again, flashback season 1, having a Zenyatta just pop off, clicking hits. That's what we're all about here. So it's really great to see so much aggression coming out from frontline, backline, midline, whatever. There's just aggression, and we live for that kind of stuff. And we have more of that, hopefully, coming our way with our next match. And that is the last one of the day. It's going to be the Atlanta Reign taking on the Dallas Fuel. And I'm personally very, very excited about that. For one, I do need to know if the Dallas Fuel are gonna, turn it up a notch, or 2 or 3 or 10 maybe, Danny. That's your faith, right? Because
I'm not worried. I don't know why I'm sweating.
I don't know.
I'm literally sweating. My palms are sweating. I don't know why, but
I can stop predicting them anytime.
Yeah, no,
it's not a problem,
like I said in the pre-show, they unfortunately didn't have much to show against the San Francisco Shock their first match. But like I said, they always have a slow start, but they are Dallas Fuel. They always somehow end up to be one of the stronger teams when the season, or even when the stage goes on. So hopefully they have some answers, because if they don't against I'm just saying Hawks Doomfist, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know until we know, right?
Unless they have an answer, yes.
You were in favor of Atlanta Reign for this one, right? Is that based on Dallas' shaky first performance? Or do you just feel like Atlanta really got a good grasp of the current meta and they have the pieces they need to?
I like their grasp on the meta. They have Hawk, who can play the Doomfist and he can play the Sigma, so they can make that switch at the drop of a hat, so they can adjust their strategy mid-map without having to sub someone else in, which is good for them. But they did just go to 5 maps against the Boston Uprising. We're at the start of a tournament where we did have major switches in the meta, so it's hard to really place all these teams right now. But for me, the main reason I went for the Atlanta Reign, I just wasn't sold on how the Dallas Fuel were playing. They look shaky. They can't put Harmbin on Xayah in this meta right now. It's going to be difficult for them, and I don't think they can turn that around in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, Kai though.
And Kai. and they have Kai.
There's always that Kai factor. Yeah, I get it. generally looking at the meta Costa, we already picked a brain from Reinforce yesterday and the day before, and actually I just do that every day. It's just kind of a hobby of mine.
Just poking at us, like, give me information.
Yeah, he has so much, right? He's a big guy. There is a lot of information fitting into that body of his. So I like to make use of that. So maybe give us your take so far. How do you feel about the meta? Do you feel like it's well established, or do you think there is still a lot in flux?
I think there's so many things in flux right now, and you got to look at the individual pieces. For me right now, Sojourn seems to be that back and forth hero that some teams are starting to utilize, other teams aren't. I would expect to see more teams move towards that Sojourn direction. The amount of value that you get from those rails, almost getting a free pick off at the beginning of team fights, is just too valuable. And especially that overclock, you can kill people through Transcendence. People will start moving towards that Sojourn, in my opinion. And then you have a look at the backline. Some teams can play that double flex support, but we actually just saw the Paris Eternal. Dredro did not look comfortable on the Baptiste compared to these other heroes, so maybe it's something that they can't lean into. Teams are playing to their strengths right now, and that's good, but the meta will begin to shake up. People will start trending towards the same thing the longer the tournament goes on.
I do feel like, though, Zenyatta will be like a main pick for most of the teams.
It's almost 100% pick rate at this point, or something like that, right?
Yeah, we should definitely, like, tomorrow, maybe at the end of the week, like, take a look at the pick rates for this week and see where we at. But yeah, Zenyatta has been basically virtually in almost every game. And yeah, if you're struggling in your backline on your Baptiste or on your Zenyatta, going Mercy is actually not.
Yeah, don't do that.
that was like very clear, like, he's in trouble and very desperate when he's like, Mercy?
That was my specialty when I was playing. I was like, it's not working, guys. I'm going Mercy. Let's see how it goes.
I feel very comfortable. And then he immediately got like sniped out of the air by Paddyfam on lockers. Now, we do, as I said, have another game ready for you. And once again, we're heading over to the lovely Lemon Kiwi and Like Day for that one.
Thanks so much, Zoe. I'm so excited for this last and final match. I think it's going to be the match of the day. The Atlanta Reign versus the Dallas Fuel. Dallas Fuel, the runner-ups on the kickoff clash, like the Desk have already said, are looking a little wonky.
Yeah, they aren't looking the most comfortable in this current meta yet, Lemon, but on the other side, when it comes to the Atlanta Reign, we've seen Kai essentially solo the Boston Uprising on Sojourn and been like, hey, so this character is kind of really good now. The epoch of Soldier has passed. The time of a 76 has moved on, and now Sojourn is all the rage. Some teams even preferring to play the Ashe, and maybe Edison or Guyo would like to pick up that Ashe on the Dallas Fuel, but evidently there's going to be a lot of iteration from this team when it comes to trying to find what they are best at, because if the Dallas Fuel core, which used to be Element Mystic alongside Rush as well, were known for anything, it was for finding their little niche and working at it until it was perfect. It was Sombra Doom Goats back in that illustrious era, and of course it was the Zarya Rush Hivemind in the kickoff clash. But now when it comes to Midseason Madness, where we aren't seeing as much Zarya as before because she's a lot weaker against the poke from things like Baptiste and of course for Zenyatta as well, Hanbin's identity is going to be a lot more defined, I imagine, by the Sigma and maybe even the Diva.
Well, let's look at the starting lineup for the Dallas Fuel. And when I say they did look wonky, they went from 3-0ing the Shock in the kickoff clash to getting 3-0'd by them. This patch has kind of thrown everyone into a loop where you thought the Dallas Fuel just right off the stage, like you said, were the first to innovate the Zarya comps, to prove to everyone the strength of using kind of these non-characteristic heroes like Zarya. But now, they have to reinvent themselves, it feels like. So now they're trying Rush on Midtown with Fearless. Fearless is trying out the Doomfist with a double flanker on Control. You got Genji on Circuit into a Brig Sigma. Like, Dallas Fuel are trying out a lot of things right now.
Yeah, it definitely feels like Edison's being incorporated in a little bit more for a little bit of hit scan volatility that can be changed within the map itself. Of course, Edison was previously their preferred Reaper player, but now is reflecting around a little bit. We've seen a little bit of Edison Genji, which was a touch confusing, but still apparently legal. And we've seen a little bit of the Edison Tracer as well. We know that Edison is very good when it comes to the flick scans. If we ever enter a Cassidy meta, we We expect Edison to be one of the premier Cassidys potentially, but is going to be fighting for that spot with Goryeo as well. Sparkle, on the other hand, bit of a hyper flex, could lean into some projectiles. However, we're pretty sure we know what the Atlanta Reign are going to be playing as we head over and have a look at their starting roster. Gator is still going to be on the bench for this one because Hawk has done very well thus far playing on the Doomfist, and the ability to swap between Doomfist, who functions more like a main tank, and Sigma, who's functioning more like an off tank, at the moment is just the kind of versatility that Atlanta need to take on any threat at short notice.
Yeah, despite kind of how Atlanta have these the bottom teams make them sweat a little bit more than we're used to seeing, because on paper this team, Atlanta, should be at the top. But consistency when it comes to fully sweeping out series and losing a map or here or there, you know, they still got a lot to prove. But despite this, the meta certainly favors Atlanta. Kai, you've already pointed out, is a top performer on Sojourn. Against Boston, that was insane. Hog's Doomfist was one of the most impressive ones at the start of the stage. Venom, the whole reason you signed this kid is for his Tracer, and he will continue to grow into this role. The only question I maybe have for Atlanta is kind of this double flex support meta that's coming in with more Baps and Zens. Is this going to be a problem for someone like OG, who's more known as like a main support Lucio situation? But just like Funny Astro and maybe other main supports, you can always go back to like a Brig and a Zen. You just might lose out on more maybe poke compositions or maybe not having burst survivability without the Baptiste. But that doesn't stop someone like OG from learning that role.
Yeah, I feel like OG and multiple other main supports have proven that Brigator is at least still a viable pick, even if Lucio is falling out of favor in some instances, but a lot of teams are preferring to run that secondary flex support. However, for Atlanta Reign, I think the question here going up against Dallas Fuel, especially if OG plays this Zenyatta, not Zenyatta, Lucio, it might just be for a rollout, would be, can Dallas Fuel deal with the pace that I expect from Atlanta Reign? Because I expect Venom to TP everyone out, go over to the Tracer, and then engage with Hawk. And can Dallas Fuel deal with this much faster engagement when they're used to being a lot more able to weather the storm when they are playing the Zarya? Instead, we've got Hanbin coming out on the Wrecking Ball.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't stop these main supports from playing Lucio and just giving their Doomfist a bit of an easier engage or even disengage. But Doomfist itself has very low cooldowns, I think 2 or 3 seconds on that punch, so they're able to reposition quite quickly without the need of the Lucio. So some teams don't really opt for it. But when you have the main support, you might as well try for it. It's already a first pick from Kai, charging on up onto the high ground. They've even started to dive the enemy high ground, as Hanbin's trying his best to displace them there on the Wrecking Ball. Atlanta Reign, though, just completely dominating the middle of the map, and they'll get the capture first.
Railgun ready to go. Oh, Kai's got some clean tracking on him. Can you tell he's been playing Soldier 76 for a while now? 39% towards that overdrive, but at the moment, Control is in favor of the Atlanta Reign, and Sparkle's barely got to play the game yet, Lemon.
Will continue to be an issue. I'd be scared playing an Echo into Kai's Sojourn. Like, did we all watch that Boston match too? I'm terrified of Kai. I have nightmares about him. So we'll see if Sparkle can close the gap. I think with enough stickies and a focusing beam, Echoes are quick to assassinate, but so is Kai if he's charged up. And Sparkle's gonna have to be so careful, especially without a Mercy Pocket that can help him. If Sparkle takes any poke damage, like, Sparkle's just gonna be in so much trouble.
Kai's doing a really good job of herding, using that slowing orb as well to make sure that disengagements don't feel particularly enticing for Fielder and Chio. However, now is where the difference gets made. The Nano is available for Chio, and it's likely going to be placed onto Sparkle to make a big dive happen.
See Sparkle just taking a bit of poke, but gets healed back up by Chio at a distance. Maybe even has the orb from Fielder. Pulse from Venom Throne doesn't connect. Soundbear from OG will start the fight for the Reign as Hawk gets nanoed, and Edison too on the other side. But it's the point press, it's all for Reign and Control as well, reaching the 70% mark as the fuel. Do they want to use the Transcendence? Because they've used every other ult and really haven't gotten any picks until now. Hawk has been removed, and the Reign just don't have a space holder without Hawk.
Ultraviolet found by Fielder. That's going to be exactly what they need to have the confidence to not invest for Transcendence just yet. Hanbin tries to stay in a touch too long, but will easily be able to exit with his life. Remember, crucially, when Hanbin goes into that ball form, his headshot hitbox is obfuscated, and that means that Kai can only do 130 damage with the railgun, so won't be as easily burstable by someone as accurate as Kai on the Sojourn.
See, Edison is just staying near the point, probably knowing that Venom's going to come rotate there just to force the flip and force some chaos as Kai shoots down Fielder, swoops in, a headshot on the Tio. Kai is disgusting. The backhand on Edison, and then the finish on the Sparker and Hanbin. Kai, who is this man?
Someone call the Hague. That cannot be allowed. That's got to be illegal. Kai with the ace, and oh my goodness. He said he didn't like playing Sojourn that much. Might change his mind after all of these. Dallas Fuel now have to make a mad dash to the point, but it's going to be down to Edison to get that first contest. Venom for now, gatekeeping entrance to the point itself and making sure that Edison might have to use the recall before even tapping it. Hanbin's made their way in, and there's the recall from Edison.
Pulse, maybe a little bit of splash damage on the Hanbin. Sparkle gonna be on the Doomfist to just help Fuel get any kind of space at all. Meteor Strike and Transcendence. Now Fuel can maybe get the flip. I'm surprised that Rain are even still contesting. Fuel doing just that. Sparkle's in the backline. Kai summoning all the attention. Venom not able to help him out in that case. 99 for the Rain and a flip for the Fuel.
Sparkle has a good amount of Doomfist experience under his belt, and so that's a good copy for him to make. Even now, Venom trying to stay alive, but has been surrounded. Surely will die here, and yes, there it is. Focusing beam from Sparkle makes short work of the under 75 HP that was available for Venom. And now Atlanta Rain, they have a little bit of a support swap up in the last couple of fights. Ultraviolet's moved over to the Baptiste instead of the Ana, and that provides less reliable healing for Hawk, so he's a lot easier to get picked off early, as we saw during the last round.
Immortality might be nice against these pulse bombs from Edison or even the mines from Hanbin, so just having some kind of burst survivability is important. Ultraviolet with a good swap there, and we kind of already had that question, but the flip's back over to the Rain. The Fuel hoping to take that back with some mines from Hanbin, and he's going to camp up there. Sparkle is above, Edison's on the point, but at an off angle, Venom and Kai are just dismantling the Fuel's defenses, who just hope to sit and wait. Now Hanbin is the only really person alive for the Fuel, while as the supports from the Fuel are getting